audience is we keep it real and
I
kind
like
of
it.
raw, so you'll fit right in.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Just Be You. I'm here today with a special guest. When I read her profile on a platform, I immediately said, this is me in someone else's body. Because her description, I just felt like was speaking to me and to my people, because after all, we attract who we are, and you will always find your person. So I want everyone to give a warm welcome applause to Rosie. She's fantastic. And I'm just so happy to have you here today. How are you feeling, Rosie?
I'm feeling really excited. I'm super grateful to be here. Thank you for having me on. Great to meet you last week, and connect and, like you said, find more of our people. I think this is awesome.
Yes. And I just felt like it was another testament to how we all have something in common. It just might take like a second to just kind of figure out what the commonality is, but there's always a way to connect. So I just thought that was really beautiful. So tell me a little bit about yourself. I know you had recently moved. What has that move been like for you? What are you most excited about your new adventure?
Yeah, so I recently relocated. It was definitely on a whim choice. I had been going through some personal development for the last 2 years, and I kind of reached just this roadblock in my life where I could see myself in old patterns and realize you need to change and you need to change now. And I reached out to a friend and they're like, hey, our roommate just moved out. And I'm like, yes, this is it. I'll be there tomorrow. And I just made this choice, which is so unlike me. I lived in the same town for 28 years. And I just said, yep, I packed all my stuff up and moved because I needed a place where I could focus on myself and get some peace and really have time to self-evaluate and grow. And so far it's been everything that I needed and wanted. It's definitely been a little challenging on the social level, but it has caused me to have no distractions in my path. And it's been really awesome. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to see where this ultimately takes me, where else I want to be, because I know this is just a transitional space, and that I'll find a place that I truly love and suits me and all my needs.
That's sweet. Did you have
Yeah.
any, I guess, backlash from your family in the sudden move, or was this something that you kind of planted, yeah, I might be moving, or did you just pack everything up and was like, yeah, I'm out?
So no planning, none. My family saw me exactly how I was, and they were sad to see me leave as a family unit, but fully supportive. They're like, we're so sad you're moving, but we know this is going to be the best thing for you. And they stood right behind me and said, we're so proud of you. This is awesome. Go be you. Backlash wise, all the people in my life that truly supported me to grow into what I'm intended to be were super supportive and said, yeah, you need this. And then the people that were in my life for possibly the wrong reasons or an unhealthy way are the only ones that passed any kind of ill say or judgment. And in the beginning, that kind of affected me. But later on, I really realized that was supposed to play out.
Yeah.
Those people weren't supporting your potential. They probably feel that way for their own reasons, and that has nothing to do with who you are. So ultimately it was a great choice.
Absolutely. So what new boundaries have you discovered for yourself now?
This is funny because I look at boundaries and right away when you start, it's this new thing. Okay, put in boundaries. And it's so easy to fall back into old habits when you start setting boundaries, because sometimes they're difficult. You
Yeah.
make this boundary and sometimes people resist it, and you have to learn how to say in a way I still love and care about you, but I also need this. And not really a compromise, but be I can be here for you this and this way, but this is no longer on the table.
Yeah.
And I found myself in a place where, well, boundaries were irrelevant a couple of years ago. They weren't they weren't a way I lived, and I just got hurt repeatedly over it. And now that they're there, people respect it. sometimes you get this like gut feeling, like you put a boundary in place and you like either second guess it, or
Mhm.
sometimes you feel guilty, or sometimes you're just like, it's hard saying no.
Yeah.
And I look at that as like, okay, well, put that boundary in place and then go back and check out those feelings and like really explore and get to know those feelings and figure out why they're there. Cause that's like an opportunity to heal yourself in some way. You
Yeah.
see that boundary up and you go, why do I feel guilty? Like, that's a weird feeling. Let's check this out.
Yeah.
What is that connected to? Because it's definitely not about the immediate situation. So I find it like an opportunity to grow and explore myself as well as keep myself healthy. Like, I've definitely put some in place where I'm like, no, I'm not available for that. That's not for me. Like,
Yeah.
and it feels good.
Yeah, just kind of being real with yourself. And it's like, yeah, I know ideally on the outside, people would love for me to do this. Like it'll make them feel warm and tingly, but it's not making me. So that's okay.
100. Yeah, absolutely.
So
It's
I get
all
that.
about placing it like inside. Like, how does that make me feel actually? Like, they need
Yeah.
to take care of themselves
Yeah.
for sure.
So what has been like your most valuable tool? Because I know when we first met, you first initially talked about like meditation. Is that like the most one that you found the value in, or just one you kind of like gravitated into because it was like, I kind of like this.
I definitely started gravitating into it. It was one of those things that, I thought I was like kind of doing all along, but hadn't really dove into fully. Like, I hadn't fully committed to it. I just was like, oh, maybe I'll meditate here and there and maybe it'll work out. And what I found was that it's one of those things that like you need to practice. It's like this
Yeah.
daily thing, like you need to put time and effort into. And it's one of the many tools I use on a day-to-day basis. I think writing is a huge one for me.
Mm.
I've been like a journaler in the past and more so now. And I almost like make myself do it because like I'll get, in this frame of mind about something and I'm like, why don't you just go write it down? Because you find a tendency to like understand yourself more. You're like, oh, I didn't know I felt that way, right? When you're like getting it on the page.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely meditation, writing, being outside, like forcing yourself to just like go get curious, like pretend like you're an alien on this planet and realize like all the awe and amazing stuff we happen. Like if you were the first person to show up, would you just look outside and take everything for granted?
That's
you
true.
know, you like go explore. Like we have all this stuff at our fingertips that's just like we just pass by it every single day and don't pay it any attention. When you're like, wow, I actually really live next to this great park and look at these amazing trees. And like, take the time to slow it down a second and appreciate what you truly have every day. Like, be here.
Yeah, it's like a
It's
moment of gratitude.
absolutely, it expands on gratitude. And sometimes, like, it takes slowing down to really see the simpler things in life, to see that, yeah, we all have problems, but we all have some awesome stuff too. Like, there's so
Yeah,
much to appreciate amongst it.
yeah, absolutely. I feel like that was probably like the greatest thing anyone has probably like ever told me, and it was to remain curious about everything and all things. And at first I was like, what that mean? Because like the context that it was being used, and I'm like, this doesn't make sense right now. And then and I was like, but I guess. And then a couple of days later, I was like, aha, now it made sense. Because then I went down a rabbit hole of I don't even know what, but the result turned to be something amazing, and I connected with an amazing person. And I was like, oh, if it wasn't because I was curious, then the chance of
Right?
me going down this rabbit hole, I may not have gotten the same thing. So that was definitely one thing that I'm like, okay, let me just continue to incorporate that and be curious about
Yeah,
people,
absolutely.
situations.
It kind of brings out like, the inner kid. Maybe you didn't get to play a lot. Like, go outside and check stuff out. It's like a part of connection with yourself that you think you lost, but truly it's up to you to just regain. And then when you start getting curious about stuff, you start learning things about yourself that you may not have known, or like,
Mm.
wow, I'm really interested in this aspect. And it might take you down, like you said, a rabbit hole of exploration and do research. And oh, I'm interested in this topic. Like, this is great. What more can I learn about it as an adult?
Right.
It's definitely a very positive tool, even though it sounds so simple. Like, you had that aha moment where you're like, Oh yeah. This makes sense now.
Yes, I love to keep it simple. Simplicity works best for me. So I'm like, if it's getting complicated, you're losing me. Like let's kind of let's reel it back in a little bit, guys. Um,
Absolutely.
but so you mentioned journaling, and I'm like really big into journaling. Like that spawned like a bunch of different ideas for me. So did you have a journal prompt that kind of like unleashed some things for you too, or one that really sticks out that it was like, yeah, this is a game-changing prompt?
I do a lot of podcasting myself, and like I'd gone down some self-healing ones and motivational ones, and there was a couple of challenges in there that prompted some of my journal writing. And one of them was like a 7-day dream challenge where it was like
Ooh.
every single day write down 5-year dreams, and no matter what they are, it doesn't, like, even if you think it sounds stupid, like it's not stupid. So like maybe it's I dream to hike this mountain, or I dream to have like a room that I can do all my artistic painting in, or maybe I dream to have a motorcycle, or maybe, like just
Yeah.
all these things that you would be like, oh, that's unrealistic. It doesn't fit the confines of normal society. Like bounce out of that and be like, maybe you dream about eating ice cream all day one day. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
So it was one of those things. It was like, write these down every day and then, go back and look at it. And eventually that led into some like, pick out the ones you really want to work for, set those goals in place and manifest in that way. But it was interesting to see because at first you go, well, yeah, I dream about this, this, and this. And you get into like day 4 or 5 and you're like, you start going down those silly roads where you're dreaming of things that you didn't really know you wanted, but you're just like, maybe I really do want that. Like, this sounds awesome. I'm gonna write this
Yeah.
down. It's just a good way to, again, explore yourself and practice a little curiosity about your wants and needs. So that was one, I guess. But I tend to also journal about like meditation, what comes up for me. Like if I
Mhm.
meditate in the morning and I, see, feel, hear anything, something sounds for me, I'll just like pop out of it and write it down right away because I know I'll forget it. 20
Yeah.
minutes later, you're involved in your day, that's out the window. And then I go back, and ironically enough, a lot of times that I write down stuff after meditation, it comes up for me again during the day in places I don't notice. And then I'm like, there's a synchronicity there. Like, holy cow, I was meditating about this color and this number. And then all of a sudden it pops up over here in the exact shape that I saw. Like, just these little things telling me, like, yeah, you're going the right way. This is the right
Yeah.
thing. So, yeah, I'm like, those two are pretty good tools. And then, of course, like, sometimes it's just verbal vomit when you have a frustrating day.
That always
you know,
works.
yeah, get those emotions out on paper, like, really feel it.
Yes. Yes. Invest in a good venting session. It'll just save you so much trauma and drama later on in the week, or whoever else that
Oh,
you
yeah.
come across. So that's
Well, and it keeps you from, like, repetitively thinking about it. Once you get it out, like, writing it down or even saying it out loud,
great.
you
Hmm.
don't have that, like, cyclical thought process happening in your head where you keep thinking about it. It keeps bothering you. Like, once you get out what you're really feeling and what your expectations were and how they were or were not met, like, you're kind of allowed to move on with your day, and you're
Yeah.
not bothered by those thoughts anymore. So that's an excellent tool for, I feel like, everyone, if you can make yourself do it.
Yeah. Well, do you use some guided meditations? Because I feel like I've heard like a mix of both. Like I watched Deepak Chopra. He had like some special
Nice.
on PBS like 2 weeks ago. And according to him, like he's supposed to be like the guru or
Yeah.
whatnot. He was like, yeah, you don't need those. You just need to listen to internal. Your internal voice is the only guidance you need. So I was just curious and trying to like gain a poll of how many people really truly find like the guided meditations beneficial, or you're just like sitting there and you're just concentrating on the breath.
I will have to say that he's not wrong. Like, ultimately, listening to your inner voice is where you want to arrive at.
Hmm.
But when I started meditating, slowing your mind down takes one, like a lot of practice. And this is where people kind of just give up on it because just like everything else, like you see you see in commercials, you see on TV, you see in social media, everybody's perfect. Oh, I'm meditating every day, I'm doing all this. But what you don't realize is it took weeks of practice, like to slow your thoughts
Yeah.
down. Cause like the first time you sit down, it's going to be like internal feedback firing everywhere, and you're going to be judging your thoughts and not super calm. And it's just like if you keep doing it day after day, you can finally arrive in this place that's quiet enough to go through your thoughts without judgment and listen to yourself. With that being said, I love guided meditations too. Like
Okay.
I've done a couple of like live groups. I've looked up some like on Spotify, and some of them are super powerful for me. Like they help me really visualize places and things that I wouldn't normally guide myself to do. And it's opened up different visions of myself, like what my future looks like. It's like, I think it's a great tool also. Like, I did say he's not wrong, but at the same time, I think as you're getting into it and before you're really established, like listening to guided meditations is awesome, especially if you can find somebody with a great voice that just like gets
Yeah.
you on that level. And they'll walk you through, breathing practices or visualization practices that you wouldn't have done on your own. So I think it kind of expands the creativity a little bit. And like I said, like some of them have been super powerful for me that I was just like, wow, that was amazing. Like I would have never done that on my own. So I feel like
Yeah.
do both. Like use the tools you have. And if you're not super comfortable in it, then yeah, definitely listen to a couple, and not all of them are for everyone. Like I've listened to some where it's just like nails on a chalkboard where I'm like, oh, I can't listen to this and relax. And others, I'm like, wow, this is like a lullaby voice. I could sleep for hours. Like, yeah. So pick and choose, explore it, like do what you got to do. But yeah, I
Yeah.
recommend both.
Sweet. I'll give it a try because I've tried I'm still, in the beginning stages, although I've been trying to, work on it for like probably like a year now. So I kind of just like bounce back and forth, like, okay, let me try to find like a good guided one and go from there. Or I'll do that for a couple of days. I'm like, all right, let me just try it on my own and see how that kind of pans out. Because for a while there, I was infamous for going to like the white room in my head.
Oh,
And I didn't realize, well, somebody told me, they were like, well, that was like the beginning of it. So like it's in there. You just gotta keep focusing on it. Or at least I was using my white room at the wrong time. Because sometimes if I didn't want to hear you, I would just kind of go to my white room. And my husband
oh.
like checking up. He noticed it. He's like, wait, you went to the white room. And I'm like, oh, you noticed?
That's so funny. You're like, you're not supposed to know that.
Yes. And especially not out me in front of the people. Like, shh, that's our secret.
Babe, it's
So
saving the white room is saving our relationship right now. Please don't judge me.
yes.
So
So I'm like,
I have to ask you, do you practice daily, or is this like something you go on and off of?
I've been trying to like really make it a habit of doing it daily. Like because I love yoga.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'll find myself kind of like switching into it as I'm doing yoga, not intentionally, but I guess because there was a while where I felt like I couldn't breathe. And then once I started doing yoga, I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm really not breathing. This is an actual breath. So like I've just become more in tune with that. So sometimes in the yoga, like I'm doing it and I'm not thinking about it, but I'm trying to get to a place where I actually want to sit down and it's like, okay, right now I want to meditate for like for the next 5 to 10 minutes. I can do that without having to like do it while I'm in motion or like unconsciously doing it. Like I want to consciously like meditate and, go where everybody else says you can go.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I like that. That's perfect. Like you got to kind of explore your own style there a bit. And yoga really is a form of like breath work and meditation. And at the end of it, you really can like relax and go into that. It is teaching you to breathe. Like a lot of times you'll be sitting in a pose, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm just holding my breath. What am I doing?
Yeah.
uh, and visualization is a great thing. Like the reason I really dove back into it, I started reading about the Silva method, and it was like really broken down and really simple. And it didn't go into like the spiritualness or all this other stuff. It was just like straight cut and forward, and it lent the science facts behind it. And they said, okay, start from
Wait, hold
100
on.
and count backwards.
What's the Silva method? Because I'm not familiar with that.
So there's a book called The Silva Mind Control Method, and this man wrote it in his exploration to expand the mind. And he was somebody that worked on like radios and was like really familiar with electronics. And he
Okay.
viewed like the human brain as a circuit, and he knew like you have to have a closed circuit to have electricity flow. So he started doing studying, and it started with like hypnosis, but then he eventually transferred it into meditation. And it was based to get like his kids were like failing in school, not getting good grades, doing all his tests, and he was trying to see like, okay, how can I get control over our minds, you know, remembering stuff, studying. And he like dove into this whole ordeal to help his family, and really found out that meditation was the key to having a better memory, to doing better, like all sorts of things. Like if you read the book,
Right.
it's just crazy. He goes into it, but his basis for everything is meditation. And he went into it scientifically. And like some of that was really interesting for me because I'm a facts kind of person. I like to go
Gotcha.
down the clickbait hole and read the science facts and know why
Right.
things work. So he introduces it like, you know, you start with relaxing, grounding, doing all those things, and you start for 10 days trying to do it 3 times a day or at least once in the morning, and you count backwards from 100 to 0.
Okay.
And during that time you're relaxing, and then he says you visualize something familiar like a lemon or an orange or a piece of fruit, and you start visualizing, and you get into as much detail as you can, like what do the pores look like, what does it smell like, what is the weight of it. Like you sit there and meditate on this, and it's essentially an exercise to get you into deep meditation. And he also went through enough of the science and research to come up with this, like basically it's a fact, like if you're sitting with your eyes at the horizon and you look up 45 degrees while you're sitting there, and a lot of people know that as like looking at your third eye, your brain
Mhm.
automatically starts creating alpha waves, which slows down your whole thinking process. And like he went into it from a scientific point of view, and I was like, wow, that's like brilliant. Like people are doing this all over, but not knowing that it actually has a physiological reaction in your body. Like you
Yeah.
are slowing down, your brain's getting down into that wavelength that's kind of between awake and asleep. And I don't know, I was like, I just thought it was the most cool thing in the world. So if you get into that book, it's called The Silver Mind Control Method. And if anything you get out of it is meditating, you're winning. Like
Yeah.
he goes into the self-healing and a lot of other things with it, which is awesome. I loved it. But if you just gain the tools to get you in that state, I think that you have an amazing tool and you're winning with it.
Yeah, that sounds pretty amazing. Like, because I not too long ago I read, I mean, not too long ago, it was a couple years ago. I read a book and it was about visualization and like a mix of like creativity.
Mm-hmm.
And what they didn't mention was thinking about the smell of an object. Like they focused a lot about like touch and just like visually seeing it like as if it were right in your hand, but not connecting like the smell piece. And then as you were like describing and explaining how that can kind of flow into meditation, I was like, oh yeah, I can see how that can really be powerful and like the whole energy of a thing. Because I believe like energies are real and you can feel it, whatever you emit, people feel your energy before you even got into a room.
Yes.
So I love to see how that kind of all connects, and just I guess confirmation for myself that the things that I'm feeling and seeing, like they're real.
Absolutely.
They're just not a figment of my own imagination.
No, even the taste, like when you start getting into that, I'm like, you can visualize like cutting into a lemon, looking at the pith, like the squirt, the smell. And like, if you imagine with your eyes closed, like tasting a lemon, your brain
Yeah.
actually starts to like send messages to your glands to salivate. Like you can feel your mouth getting more moist because you're like imagining tasting a lemon, which is a total trip. You're like, I'm not actually eating a lemon, but my brain thinks I am, which is cool. Like, it's very powerful to show what mind over matter can do for you. And if you have control over your thoughts and the way your mind works, because let's be real, like we're born with these brains that are like monkey brains. They go all over the place, 100 miles an
Yeah.
hour. And if you can sit down, center it, and control the process and those thoughts, like you can control any aspect of your life, really, whether it comes to diet, or if you want to quit a bad habit, or if you want to remember more in studying. Like it's pretty amazing what you can do just based off meditation and controlling your own thoughts, which great. I'm like,
Yeah.
highly recommend. Please do. If everyone did it, we'd be better off, but
We
it's
sure
not for
would.
everyone, I guess.
And it all starts in the brain, guys. It all starts in your mind. You have to see it first
100.
and then believe it
Absolutely.
and just go after it, no holds bar. No pun intended, but just
Yes.
so have you thought about writing your own book? Because for somebody that's been on this road for 2 years, like I feel like you have a book that's waiting to be pushed out of you.
So this is like 100%. And like I've been on the road of self-discovery and true change for 2 years, but my
Okay.
road before this has been my whole life of very hard lessons, very traumatic events, a rough childhood, adult trauma, like all these things. Like I had, if you look back in my life, you would just be like, wow, that person drew the shortest stick in the book. Like, how did this all happen? But throughout life, I've always just like counted my blessings and been like, okay, it is what it is. Like, pick your stuff up and move on. And the last 2 years, I've really looked at it and been like, okay, the common factor in these repetitions in this area, this area, and this area are you. So
Mm,
you need to quit playing the everything happens to me card and start changing your life for yourself.
mm,
Stuff's still going to happen. Unfortunate events will still arise, but how you handle it, and whether your highs are high and your lows are low, you can come to a nice medium wave, and you can choose to handle things with a lot more peace and a lot more resilience, and just get that control over your life where you're not spiraling out and be like, wow, this terrible thing happened. My life is to an end. Now it's just like, okay, that was really shitty, but this is what I have to choose from here. I can go this path, this path, this path. And even though this happened, I can still learn from it and it'll benefit me in these ways. And ultimately, like, yes, I feel like I have a book in here. I absolutely do. Like, I'm like, dude, I need to write a story about this. And it just, like that ADHD brain of me is just like, write this, write this, write this. And so in my mind, I'm thinking like, if I just like start compiling these stories, and then either maybe I have someone help me map them out, or I
yeah.
can assemble a roadmap of how to draw it all together for a life lesson. But there's just
Yeah.
so many little lessons in there. So short answer, yes. Like I would love to do that. That is definitely a passion of mine that I would like to get out on paper. Long answer, holy cow. It's going to be a lot to accomplish for sure. I will
So
do
what
it.
was
I
your biggest
promise I will do it.
lesson? And what was your biggest lesson?
Oh my gosh. My biggest lesson, and this is just coming around now, and this is not selfish for anybody listening. Put yourself number one, A first. Like, take care of yourself. Take care of your needs. Love yourself the most. Give yourself the support that nobody else gives you. Like, we have this tendency to go seeking places to fill the needs we didn't get met as we came through life. And if you can realize that you can meet your own needs and like fall deeply in love with yourself, ultimately, you grow into a person that's a better friend, a better spouse, a better parent, a better son or daughter, whatever. You are not being selfish by putting you first. You're growing and you're making yourself for a better person for your friends. Like it shows in your relationships, like your internal glow, your shine, everything that you get out of it will benefit everyone around you. You're going to be more available. You're going to be more open-minded. Like or sharing, you'll be authentic and be able to connect with people on a new level. And it just, that is so imperative to really finding some sort of happiness, is be your own best friend, support yourself. When you find that you don't have somebody pushing you, you need to push you. You need to look in the mirror, stare at the person, realize how much you love them, how much you care about them, give them a high five and be like, hell yeah, we're gonna do this today. You're gonna be awesome at this. Like, just love yourself. I
Yeah.
I can't I can't put that any other way. Just love yourself.
No, that's beautiful. I mean, hey, it all starts with you. Be the change you want to see. So,
Yes.
you want to see something different, then that might require you to do things a little differently, maybe a little sacrifice, but
Oh, absolutely. And here's the deal, like, when you get to know yourself, there's some pretty ugly stuff in there, like, maybe you don't wanna face, but being your own best friend requires, like, looking at that big stinky pile of whatever ugliness that you have in there without judgment and, like, being compassionate to yourself and being your best friend, like, somebody that you would want there by your side being like, "Oh, I can understand why you were that way in the past. What does that mean? Like, what were you missing? Let's figure that
yeah,
out. Let's change that." And that really it'll manifest into a better you at the end of the day. It's not easy
not by
looking
any
at all those,
means.
like, really dirty, grimy things down in there. It's hard, but it will just change you profoundly, and then you learn to accept yourself and you're like, "Yeah, I am that way, and this is how I act now, but I've done that and I learned from it. Here I am now, like, I'm on the
Yeah,
other side."
so cool. So what are you looking forward to this year, 2023? It's a new year, it's the second month. What are you looking forward to most?
So, this is interesting because I don't have anything, like, set in stone planned, and I am such a A-type, like, must be organized, must have my agenda. And, like, I've been opening myself up to new experiences, meeting new people, saying, like, yes in the moment, and I'm really excited because not only have I put in all this change for myself, but I'm, like, excited to see the new experience that comes up. Like, you connecting with me, you're like, "Hey, do you wanna do a podcast?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"I've never done that." "Yes, I do." Yeah, and, like, I'm really excited to see what the world has to offer with this new lens. Like,
Yeah.
I've made these really great connections with longtime friends. I'm making connections with new people, and I just like feel stuff on the horizon like coming up. And I know all the trials and tribulations that I've been through have really forged me to be the person that I need to be strong, to handle all these things coming up. And I'm just like excited, like day to day, living in the moment, going like, what do I have to do tomorrow? Okay, like
Yeah.
that sounds awesome. Let's get that
Yeah.
done. And if something comes up that's cool, do that too. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna share this like tidbit. This is like a little exposing. So like before, and I mean, codependency was hardcore with me. That was one of my personality traits that was
Okay.
not so desirable. So
Gotcha.
since I moved and started going down in this, like the other day, I was just like feeling, okay, I'm by myself. I don't have a partner anymore, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, why don't you take yourself on a date night? And I'm like, I've never really done the whole like go to a movie by yourself. So I was like, I'm going to take myself to get some dinner and go to a movie. And it was amazing. I was just like, this is awesome. Nobody's trying to talk to me during my movie. I don't have loud
Yeah.
popcorn crunching in one of my ears. I can full on recline with whatever I got going on, my drink, my snacks, and I like thoroughly enjoyed myself and like left the movie being like, wow, you just took yourself on a date, and that was like one of the better dates you've had in a long time.
Yeah.
So I'm like, for all y'all out there, do it. It's worth it. Like,
Yes. And I will second that because I have gone on a movie date by myself and I also agree that it was the best experience. Although I did have that moment where I was like, "Did you?" And there was nobody there for me to be like, "Did you just see that?" But I was like, it's okay. I had the best time. The one thing I
absolutely.
haven't, I guess, been brave enough to do is go to lunch on my own. Like and ask for a
Um,
table of one or a table for one. But the movie thing
yeah,
I definitely have done.
in my past life, like I would go sit at a bar and have lunch, not necessarily to drink, but because then you're one on one with somebody that you can speak to the whole time. And
Right.
like for some people, if they're not trying to pick up past habits or they have issues with that, that might be a little triggering for them. But that was like my resolution, like having one-on-one interaction, and then you end up like having banter with other people. Those places are decent, or like do something outdoors, go have lunch on a patio somewhere, because then you could just like bring a book and be like, oh yeah, I'm that quaint person, I'm reading my book, I'm enjoying
Yeah.
my lunch. Like if you make the whole experience good, then I don't feel like you're so like tied up in thinking about I'm the one person sitting at this table in a restaurant. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like just go and celebrate yourself. You're awesome. Just go do it.
Go tell them it's your birthday and you get the giant dessert by yourself.
That part. See what the surprise
Absolutely.
are gonna be. Or how many of the wait staff will come out and sing happy birthday to you.
Oh my God. I guarantee if somebody saw that at a restaurant, they would probably come join you at your table, and you might end up meeting some new really cool people that way. They'd be
Yes.
like, what are you doing alone? I was testing myself and it turned out great. Now I met you.
Yes. And if I'm there, best believe I'm joining in on the celebration because I do that now. Someone's celebrating a birthday. I'm like, happy birthday. Woohoo! So if I'm around, expect a +1.
That's awesome.
So what advice would you give to the five-year-old you, like, well, the you that was from 5 years ago?
Me from 5 years ago. Let me get in my time machine and go back 5 years. The first thing that popped up for me was let it go. Like, just let
Oh.
it go. And 5 years ago, I was still married. I divorced 2 years ago. And I was holding on to something that wasn't for me.
Mhm.
It's like my marriage, I had all the material things and none of the spiritual things. I didn't have
Got
like
it.
that spiritual connection with my partner. There wasn't the trust there. Like kept trying to project my needs onto the person in front of me when there was no way they were ever going to meet those expectations. And it's like the person that I met was different and changed, and I just kept holding on, like thinking like I'm going to make this work. I'm going to make this happen. Like when in reality, instead of reaching out and trying to change other people, I should have been looking in and changing myself and be like, let it go. This isn't for you. Move
Mhm.
on. Like cut the ties. And then even after that, like through divorce, the amount of probably like anger and hurt and animosity that I carried around for a long time, they were so unhealthy for me. And it's stuff that it's a weight that, yes, it does make you stronger carrying it, but you're actually even stronger when you find a way to let that go and live in now instead of just living in the past or terrified about the future. Like the gift of our present is tremendous, and we need to appreciate that for what it is and let the past go. And yes, plan for the future, but not sit here and have anxiety about it or worry about it. Like
Mhm.
I wish I could just like first class send that back to me 5 years ago. But I don't even know if I would have heard it back then. You know what I mean? We all have to go through our stuff to open up to hear.
That is
So
true.
yeah, that would be the biggest one for sure.
Yeah, no, totally. You just gotta let go and let it flow and just kind of release yourself from the things that no longer serve you, as they say,
Yes.
and just move forward and just kind of welcome all change, new change, and the stuff that makes you uncomfortable.
Absolutely. This like there's so much inner peace when you learn the letting it go and you learn to be in the moment and the stillness. Like it just like brings up this thing inside of you that you're not worrying about stuff anymore. Like I
Yeah.
used to get major anxiety, like so bad, like anxiety attacks, full on panic, shut down, hide somewhere, hyperventilating. And it's just that need to control or everything spiraling out of control, both of those things, that held me back so much. Like, let that shit go.
Yeah.
Seriously, that has changed my life. Like, I rarely get anxiety anymore. Like, maybe public speaking or something I would, but you know what I mean?
Ooh.
It
And you're doing
changes
good with
you.
public speaking, by the way.
Thank you.
But go ahead, go ahead.
That's because I get to stare at you across from me, and I don't see, like, all I have something to focus on, you know?
Yay. Well, that's good. I'm glad, you were able to come and just, share with us. Really appreciate all the stuff that you were able to impart into the audience. I know I definitely had a takeaway from it, and I found something that I could learn from and definitely continue to connect with. So I appreciate you. And I know, someone else is feeling the same way, like, geez, if Rosie did it, I can totally do it.
Oh,
And
yes, you can.
yes, and we all have something to teach and show, the next person, just because we all look different. There's always something we can connect on and connect with, and just kind of use that as the motivating piece. At least that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be here and be able to share, and anybody listening out there, we love you so much. I hope this helps you. Keep on
Yes.
keeping on that journey. It's it's a good one. We're gonna be here our whole lives working on this, so just keep going because it gets better every day.
Absolutely. So where can people connect with you? What
Um,
platforms are you on?
I Instagram is like my number one, of course. Everybody loves Insta. So
Yeah.
I'm at Rosie Muerta on Instagram. It's RosieMuerta. You could also reach me. I'm like, I don't get on Facebook a lot. Instagram's a good way, or you could email me my first and last name at Gmail. It's RosieAnnaHauser if you have any just like questions, or you want some reading material or whatever. Like, I got
Yeah.
some resources. I know a couple of groups, stuff like
Yeah.
that. But even then, just DM me on Instagram. I'm responsive, and I like sharing stuff. You'll see goofy pictures of me on there and sharing funny memes and all that stuff.
Cool. I love it. Wait, what book are you reading right now? I'm curious.
Oh, let me take a look. I seriously started downloading so many books, and I've been jumping around. I just downloaded The Power of Now, and I haven't really
Oh,
got into it. I literally just downloaded it and got the sample. I was in a Facebook Live group for empathic people and like developing a little bit about your spirituality, and she like recommended these books, and I was like, okay, great, new reading material. So The Power
yeah.
of Now is one that I've just started diving into that I'll probably get into later tonight.
Very
So
cool.
I can't highly recommend yet, but she highly recommended it, so maybe it's great.
Well, no, that's actually on my I also have a bunch of books on my to read list. But Power of Now was one that I recently added, and The Year of Yes
Oh,
was another one that's on my reading list that I hope to get to probably next month, because I'm trying to set up at least one new book that I'm reading a month. I like to read, so let's see how far I do that, because I just always find
oh,
something else. I'm like, oh, let me do this, let me do this, let me do this.
yeah,
But I
I
definitely
get it.
want to commit to the one book a month. So that's for my March reading.
Absolutely. It's a great way to wind down. I find myself like, if I can't sleep, reading definitely like puts me at that level where I'm like, and now
Yeah.
I'm going off. Yeah, I love
It's
it.
like my mom used to say, she's like, if you're bored, just read a book, you'll go to sleep. I'm like, I'm like, in
She
my
was
case,
right.
no. I'm like, I have a very active imagination, so that just might get me more worked up. So I don't know if that's gonna ease my mind.
Right.
Well, thank you again for joining me on this episode of Just Be You. Um, Guys, I will see you next Friday, same bat hour, same bat time, with our next guest. Have a great day. And remember, if no one's told you today, you are strong, you are worthy, and you are enough. And I will see you on the next episode. Bye.
Bye.